When it comes to Christian movies, or movies with redemptive themes centered on Christ, many Christians quickly brush aside The Legend of Bagger Vance. It's no secret that the novel with the same title by Stephen Pressfield is based on the Hindu sacred text, the Bhagavad Gita. However, sometimes when Western filmmakers engage in the production process, their work takes on a life of its own as profound Christian themes end up being woven into their movies. This certainly was the case with the film adaptation of The Legend of Bagger Vance. Scott Stroud explains that as one's culture's stories are appropriated for another culture, the ideas are adapted to the new culture's superstructure. He points out that as The Legend of Bagger Vance moved from its Eastern origins into the hands of Western publishers and filmmakers, its Eastern influence began to fade, and the story took on Western notions of God. Because of this, the story ends up presenting the pain and struggle of those suffering from PTSD, and a marvelous picture of the way the Holy Spirit works in a person's life to teach, heal, and restore. The Legend of Bagger Vance, directed by Robert Redford and starring Matt Damon, Will Smith, and Charlize Theron, tells the story of Ranulph Juna, a phenomenal golfer and rising star residing in Savannah, Georgia, who is also the love interest of the wealthy Adele Invergordon. Juna serves as a captain in the Great War, where he is traumatized by the loss of his entire company. He disappears, returning to Savannah years later as a broken-down alcoholic. Juna reluctantly agrees to play in an exhibition match against two famous skilled golfers as his mysterious caddy, Bagger Vance, coaches him back to the great golfer he once was. The Legend of Bagger Vance does a great job at showing the symptoms of PTSD. We witness Ranulph Juna display these symptoms: loss of self-worth, feelings of being unlovable, powerlessness, helplessness, self-doubt, self-critical, depression, sense of being out of balance, negativity, nothing feels right, lack of meaning and purpose in life, feeling empty, lack of interest in activities one once enjoyed, breakdown in relationships with others and with the divine, self-destructive behavior such as drinking too much. All forms of trauma affect one's spirituality. Spiritual trauma attacks the core of one's being, one's relationship to God and relationship to oneself. Juna needs spiritual help. This sets a stage for Bagger Vance to enter the story, presenting a wonderful picture of the way the Holy Spirit works in our lives to teach, heal, and restore. Juna shares with his former lover, Adele, his reason for not returning to golf.
I've lost my swing, Adele.
Really? Where'd it go?
We see Juna hitting golf balls, something he hasn't done in years. This is when Bagger Vance shows up and offers to be his caddy in the upcoming expedition match. Here we see two characteristics of the Holy Spirit's work in one's life. First, it is when Juna steps out and takes up the golf club once again that Bagger shows up. As we read through the Gospels, we see something interesting about the miracles Jesus performed. They often occurred as Jesus asked each person to do the impossible. He said to the man with the withered hand, "Stretch out your hand." He said to the paralyzed man, "Get up, take up your mat, and go home." It is when Juna takes action and does what he said he could not do, the character representing the Holy Spirit appears and begins helping Juna to do what he could not. The second characteristic we witness is Bagger Vance reveals he knows Juna's deepest thoughts and pain.
The trick is to find your swing.
What'd you say?
Well, you lost your swing. We got to go find it.
We see a representation of the Spirit pointing to Christ in another scene. One of the two golfers playing in the match is Bobby Jones. We learn through the movie that Jones is a good man. Also, his golf game is characterized as being the very picture of grace in motion. Bagger points Juna to observe how Jones plays the game. This is fascinating because Jesus is described as being full of grace and truth. The Holy Spirit continually points to Christ as being the example of how to live. The Spirit of God leads us into all truth. Jesus even refers to him as the Spirit of truth. We see this play out in an exchange between Juna and Bagger.
A man lives, a man dies. And in the end, it all turns out the same. You're alone. And that's all you're ever gonna be.
That a fact. Alone. So a soul is born with everything that the Lord can give it, and things don't go its way, so it just gives up, and the good Lord just takes everything back.
That's right.
And then the soul dies. alone. Well, that's pretty much what you said?
That's right.
That's a sad story, Mr. Jenner.
Yes, it is.
And that's about the dumbest thing I heard any fool say ever. You got yourself a hard eye there, Mr. Jenner. Soul is born with everything, don't look dies, and the good Lord. You a funny man, Mr. Jenner.
Like the Holy Spirit, we see Bagger's influence in Junah's life causes him to reconnect relationally to others and even men's broken relationships. We watch Bagger act as the Holy Spirit as he teaches Junah when he's willing to listen, and he steps back and lets Junah make mistakes, sometimes embarrassing ones, when he's not willing to listen.
This is becoming embarrassing.
Oh, no, sir. It's been embarrassing for quite some time now.
The Spirit of God never abandons us. In a beautiful scene, Junah hits a bad shot into the woods and his greatest fears and pain from his trauma comes to the surface. We notice Bagger Vance is right there with him, comforting him and encouraging him. He says these profound words.
Time for you to come on out the shadows, Junah. Time for you to choose.
I can.
Yes, you can. But you ain't alone. I'm right here with you. I've been here all along.
Through Bagger's guidance, Junah finds his way out of the woods of paralyzing fear and isolation and back onto the path of life, being who he was created to be. The Legend of Bagger Vance is so much more than a movie about golf. It gives us a beautiful picture of the way the Holy Spirit works in our lives, teaching, healing, and restoring, and continually pointing us toward Christ, our path.
Thank you.